The Ron G Morning Show, every Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. only on WSAN Radio, the soul of America. All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Ronald Gordon on WSAN Radio, and we have a treat for y'all today. Not only one, but we got two that's going to tell us about what's going on May 1st. And I tell you, it's an honor to have two knowledgeable young men. I'm not going to call y'all seasoned veterans, young men on the show this morning. I would say one guy over there remind me of me because both of us are bald-headed. And, I'm pretty sure Aundar will work on that a little bit down the line.
Yeah, I know that's right. I'm holding on to this gray for a little while, but
Okay, why don't y'all take time and introduce yourselves?
go ahead, Baba.
Well, my name is Tony Browder. I'm pleased to be on air with you, Ronald, and I'm looking forward to coming back to San Antonio the 1st of May. And I'll be coming in to have a discussion, participate in a discussion on the 30th anniversary of the film Dr. John Henry Clarke, A Great and Mighty Walk. And that will be followed the following day with me having a discussion and book signing of my latest publication from the Browder File, Volume 3, A Browder Perspective, my 30-year journey to enlightenment. And I am excited to come back to San Jose. I was last there 2 years ago, hosted by the same wonderful group, Brother Aundar and Sister Ada. And I'm here to talk about African history, African culture, my work in Egypt, my publications, and to raise the consciousness of a people at a time when our consciousness needs to be raised at the most. So the timing is right on point, and I look forward to seeing everyone in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Well, my name is Baba Aundar Ma'at, and first I just want to say to you, Brother Ron, thank you for this opportunity to come on and share this. And of course, always happy to be in the presence of our great scholar, Brother Anthony T. Browder. And just wanted to say, we're bringing them in for the 11th annual Pan-African Cultural Festival. The 11th annual Pan-African Cultural Festival. Of course, it's a joint venture with SABIF, San Antonio Black International Film Festival, which Brother Browder just mentioned, Sister Ada. Of course, we have Melanized Media, who are the producers of the Black History documentary film here in San Antonio. Of course, my bookstore, San Antonio Black History Tour. So these various groups and businesses are coming together to really bring in this great scholar that we have. And we're really very excited because I think this is a very important time for us to have this kind of information and discussion. So we're really looking forward to it. And again, the date is, of course, coming into May the 1st. We'll have Brother Browder at the Taste of Africa. He just mentioned we're going to have food, fashion, film, and of course, talking about looking at the film on Dr. John Henry Clarke, The Great and Mighty Walk. So that's going to be very exciting. And of course, his reflections on that. And then that Saturday, we hope that, as a matter of fact, Brother Brad, I know we're looking forward to have you at the festival, at least for a few minutes, a little while, where you can have a book signing there and sell some of your books and sign. And then that evening, we're really excited that Saturday evening, of course, we're going to have the full program designed just to give the floor to our great brother and have him just, impart knowledge and share knowledge with us where we can now take this knowledge and really plan for a greater future as a people. So that's all, pretty much outlined for the week. And we'll go more into it, but I just really want to hear, and really the community to know who we have coming in. And that's important, family, because we need scholars, we need people with information that's going to empower us and educate us and lift us up so we can, really strive for our greatness.
Well, which lead into this question for Brother Browder. You're an acclaimed author, publisher, culture, historian, artist, and educational consultant who has devoted decades to research Africa and African American history and our culture. So the question I have for you, are the founder and director of IKG, and it's a cultural resource. You also lead the ASA restoration project in Egypt. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Well, that project is called the ASA Restoration Project, named in honor of esteemed son of Texas, that is Baba Asa G. Hilliard III, who was a colleague, who was a friend of mine. Dr. Hilliard wrote the introduction to my first book from the Browder file back in 1989. Dr. Hilliard was an educational consultant. He was a psychologist, one of the foremost authorities on the history of Kemet, or the country that we now refer to as Egypt, or ancient Egyptian history. And he passed almost 19 years ago, in April. And his passing came as a personal loss to me. And one of the things that I've learned through my years of life, through my years of study, is that when someone that you love dies, when they become an ancestor, we have an obligation. We, the living, have an obligation to remember them. And one of the most meaningful ways we can honor someone who is no longer living among us is to name something after them. That's why we name streets after Dr. Martin Luther King. That's why we name buildings after Malcolm X, and programs after Harriet Tubman and other noted ancestors. And so the ASA Restoration Project was my way of honoring a man who meant the world to me. And it was through the ASA Restoration Project that we were involved for 15 years in the excavation, conservation, and restoration of what was initially three Kushite tombs on the west bank of Luxor, Egypt, three 25th dynasty tombs. These tombs are 2,700 years old. And we started this project in 2008. And by the time we finished our work last year, we had excavated, we had discovered, and began the renovation of over 40 tombs. We have found the largest Kushite necropolis on the west bank of Luxor, Egypt. And the west bank of Luxor is the famous necropolis in the world. That's where you have the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, the Valley of the Nobles, the Temple of Hatshepsut. So our site is significant because we have found and restored the site of the 25th dynasty king Karakamen. Karakamen is important because he is the son of Shabaka, the third king of the 25th dynasty. Karakamen is important because he was a priest of Amen at Karnak Temple on the east bank of Luxor. Karnak Temple is the largest religious complex ever built by human beings on the planet. It's larger than the Vatican. You could take every church built in London, England, and put them inside of this complex and still have room for two football fields. And Karakamen was the priest whose daily responsibility it was before sunrise is to lead the procession and say the words that would evoke the presence of Amen. Amen is an African word which identifies the unseen presence of God Almighty. So it was this priest's job to evoke the words, to call down the Spirit of God into his Holy of Holies, so that the Spirit of God could literally inspire the 83,000 African men and women, priests and priestesses who worked at this temple complex. So that's the ASA Restoration Project. And, my other work through IKG has been about doing the research, writing the books, documenting our story, and making this information available to everyone who has a need to know. And that need to know is greater now than ever before because we are witnessing in real time efforts by the current occupant of the White House to erase our history, to ban books, and to potentially forbid conversations like this to take place in the land of the free and the home of the brave. So we need to be clear about what is at stake. We need to be clear about what our responsibilities are, to fight for everything that is about Ma'at, truth and just and right. And we need to be willing to put our lives on the line if necessary to defend all of those who sacrifice in order for us to have the opportunity to have this conversation that we're having at this moment.
You know, it's one thing that I'm working with is getting the youth involved. I always tell them, don't wait for that person to become an ancestor. You need to start talking to them now because that's knowledge and wisdom that's coming out. And I had youth together this past weekend, and they sat up there and told me, we don't talk to the older folks because they don't talk to us. They talk down to us. And they said that's the reason why they don't get involved. And I talked to some older people saying, well, they're going back in the day, you should be seen and not heard. And with this going on right now, the way the climate is out there now, we need to have an open dialogue for the youth and everything that's going on. And this festival coming up right now. See, last year I was there. There was a lot of youth involved there. I was amazed how many youth that was there. So, Brother Aundar, how can we bridge that gap?
I think, and I'm gonna turn it over to Brother Browder because last time he was here, he shared something with me. I think that was very powerful, as because he makes a conscious effort to transfer that knowledge and opportunity to his daughter and to the youth that work under him. But the question that you're raising is a very important question because what we want to do is to share this knowledge because to have this knowledge and not be able to share it, we are not honoring our ancestors. We have this information, historical information. Our young people need it because, as we know, history very much dictates where we're going to move to in the future. We are guided by the past in many ways. So we have to set up a foundation, I think, an opportunity where we can bring young people in. So that the weekend of the Pan-African Festival, we want to bring young people in because to sit at the foot of Brother Browder and have him to show images and talk about the history is very powerful because we're living in a time of technology where people are very much into images. They want to see things. They want to put their eyes on something. And when you can share that in that kind of format, I think it has a greater impact and it captures their attention. So what we're hoping, with this weekend and just bringing him in is that we can lay down a foundation to start this discussion that you're talking about, because there's no future for us if we don't engage our young people, because we're going to all move beyond this physical phase of this life. But we want to pass on something now where the minds and ideas that we have built on will be continuous in the young people, and they can pass that on to those who are yet to come. But it begins with, I think, creating an opportunity and putting it in a format that we can engage our young people.
Okay.
Well, Brother Ron, let me comment on that question as well, because we have to be honest with ourselves, right? There are adults who don't even talk to their spouses, who don't even talk to their adult siblings. There are church members who don't talk to each other within the congregation. So we are demonstrating degrees of dysfunction to these young folk. So what we've got to do is take responsibility for our own actions. The role of the adults is to raise young people. As Frederick Douglass says, it's better to raise a child than to repair a broken adult. And so we've got to understand what is at stake, and people have to begin to understand our responsibility to be true to ourselves, to be true to our family, to be true to our community. So what is currently happening now in this country, and we're witnessing it happening around the world, is that people are being attacked. People's values and cultures and religions are being attacked. And sometimes it takes such an attack. Sometimes it takes an assault against our humanity for make people to make people begin to treasure and value that which they've already had. And so it's important for us to be intelligent. It's important for us to understand what's happening in the world around us and to take stock of what we need to do in order to prevent those negative things from coming to our own doorstep. And so you're right, there needs to be intergenerational conversations. And in order to have intergenerational conversations, we got to have something to talk about. And what better thing to talk about than who we are as a people, our family, our ancestors, those people who added value in our lives. Everybody can relate to that. So we got to find common ground and then build on that common ground. We have to have common goals and objectives and then determine what we can do every single day of our lives to achieve those objectives. And the young folk are watching the adults and they model what we do, whether we're conscious of it or not. So this is our opportunity to shine. This is our opportunity to invite the ancestors whose names we evoke when we pour libation, whose names we sometimes carry, whose names on the streets that we drive down and the buildings that we live in and work in. It's time that we take these ancestral relationships seriously and know that when we align our consciousness with their spirit, then their spirit moves through us and they speak through us, and it creates opportunities for us to replicate all of the good that we have ever had to offer in the world. And nobody on this planet has brought more good to the world than African people. And this is prime time for us to demonstrate that to every life that matters to us.
You know, what brings me to this question, good segue to this question, why is understanding African history essential to building unity in the African world community?
So let's look at it this way. Why is understanding Christianity important to building a Christian community? Why is understanding Islam important to building an Islamic community? Why is understanding Judaism important to build a Jewish community? If you don't know who you are, you know nothing. If you spend your life trying to be someone other than yourself, you will be nothing. The best thing you can do, and the best thing you can do better than anything else, is to be yourself. And in order to be yourself, you've got to know who you are. And in order to know who you are, you've got to know that your story began thousands of years before enslavement. The film that's going to be featured on John Henry Clark just echoes his sentiments. What Dr. Clark said, if you begin your history with slavery, everything since then looks like progress. We need to understand who we were before our ancestors were enslaved. We got to go back 5,000 years before enslavement. The historical record is there to show that 5,000 years ago, Africans were the only civilized people on this planet. That's a documented fact. That's not Black history. That's world history. And so we deal with the facts, and we cannot depend on our former enslavers or our current oppressors to teach us information that we are obligated to teach ourselves and to teach our children. So to know yourself and to act on that knowledge, to develop an African consciousness, to be African-centered, to have an African worldview, and to love yourself as an African person is as important to you as breathing. And if you can't do those things, you're going to suffocate in a world that has grown increasingly anti-African, right? So to know yourself gives you the tools to be able to protect yourself. And when you truly protect yourself, when you truly wrap yourself in the glorious heritage of your ancestors, you will find that that is your secret weapon. As long as we are cloaked in our knowledge of self, folk can't mess with us. So I reference 60-something years ago, in the 60s, in the 1960s, when the Black consciousness movement came about, when the Black power movement came about, when the Black studies movement came about, Black folk made more progress within 8 years than we have made in 80 years. And all of the benefits that we have now are a result of us loving ourselves and moving consciously with that love of self. And white folk responded and said, oh, we better give them civil rights. We better give them the right to vote. We better give them the right to live where they want to live, and fair housing and fair jobs. Well, since we have backslid now, and we are moving away from loving ourselves, then we see all the things that our ancestors fought for 60 years ago are being taken away. Why? Because we no longer are incentivized by the consciousness of Black men, women, and children who made untold sacrifices just so that we could have the benefits that are now being taken away. So, in order to move forward, we got to move back. We got to engage in Sankofa. We got to reclaim that spirit
Hmm.
that has always been in us and that no one can deny. And when we embrace it, we change the world. So it's world changer time again, brother.
Okay.
And if I can add some, cause when we started the Pan-African Cultural Festival 11 years ago, the hope and the vision was that we would bring the African world community together. Here in San Antonio and of course across the world, we have African brothers and sisters who are coming to America from Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, from Barbados, from Jamaica. And what we wanted to do was first bring us together to help us to understand that many of us have been miseducated. We've been miseducated here in America about Africa, and Africans have been miseducated about us in the world. So what we wanted to do was to break down this miseducation barrier, because this misinformation keeps us divided. And in order for us to come together, we needed to know the truth about ourselves and each other. So what we found is that when we have these conversations and gatherings during the Pan-African Festival, we realized that, yes, we've been miseducated, misinformed. Now let's move away from that, because who are we really? As Brother Browder was saying, that our history began beyond these borders of America. We have to go back beyond slavery, because too many of us start our history in slavery. And when you start your history in slavery, as Dr. John Henry Clark would say, hey, all progress looks like progress for the most part, because what? Because you started in slavery. But the idea is that we have to go back to Africa and reconnect to our history and our culture. We are the original people on this planet Earth. We are the mothers and fathers of the foundation. And we laid the first civilization and cultural principles and values. So what we hope to do with the celebration is that we want to bring our community together, all those brothers and sisters from around the world, so we can start having honest conversations with each other, and then start building bridges where we can build beyond just one day, but build every day. But we have to first know ourselves, and we have to identify with our African history, culture, heritage.
Man, it's going to my next question. This question's for both of you. How does your work help people reconnect with their identity, heritage, and purpose?
Well, speaking from my own personal experiences, I've authored or co-authored 17 books that are used in classrooms around the world. I've been taking people on study tours to Egypt since 1987. So we've taken over 4,000 people to Africa, to Egypt specifically, on study tours to the Nile Valley. I have an activity here in DC called the Egypt on the Potomac Field Trip, which is 40 years old this year. We've had over 20,000 people from around the country take that field trip. So I am a person who lives my life based on the practical application of historical knowledge. To read something in history is good, but to see it for yourself and to make it come alive does something else to your soul, does something else to your spirit. So I can say from my personal experiences, brother, that for the 50 years that I've been doing this work, I know that it transforms lives. I've got the evidence, I've got the documentation, and my record speaks for itself. And the beautiful thing is, everything comes in cycles. Fashion, music, automobiles, clothing, everything is cyclical. And so we are standing on the cusp of an uptick in a cycle of African cultural appreciation because of what's happening right now, because of the Afrophobia that has gripped this country and that we are witnessing in parts of Europe and other parts of the world. These anti-African sentiments are growing. And so what that is going to set in motion, there's one of the, I think it's Newtonian laws of physics: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for all of this pushback, anti-African pushback that we're witnessing right now, there's going to be a greater pro-African pushback. And that pro-African pushback is going to come from us. Brother Aundar was talking about the Africans, the continental Africans who are going to be attending the 11th annual Pan-African Cultural Festival. Well, one of the things that we have to acknowledge and speak proudly of is the fact that Africans living in America, and that's who we are. We are Africans living in America. We're not colored people. We're not Negroes. We're not just Black people. We are African people, African descendant people who happen to be living in America. We are the best educated and the wealthiest African people on the planet. And anyone who travels throughout the world knows that what African Americans do shapes the world, whether it's our music, whether it's our sports, whether it's our culture, whether it's the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we preach, the way we dance. What we do influences the world. So just imagine now as we move into this uptick of African consciousness, when we start moving correctly, speaking correctly, and showing what it means to be human, right? That's our purview. That's what we have done better and longer than any other people on this planet. So we're moving into a time where that energy is going to be accelerated, and we're going to do it better than we've done it in the past. So now is the time for people to begin to prepare their minds by reading and studying, to prepare their hearts to learn to love themselves, to learn to love that African face that stares back at you in the mirror, to learn to love that African hair that some of us used to have, to learn to love that African nose, that African skin tone. All of these things are graces from God that speaks to the first people that God created. That is the essence of who we are. And it's by returning to the essence, it's by claiming and amplifying our essence that we change the frequency of the consciousness of the world. And when we do that, the world shifts. The world turns right side up on its axis. And again, let's not be foolish about what's happening in the world right now. We are witnessing in real time the destruction of America. And this destruction is coming from inside of the country, not outside. It's coming from the so-called leadership of this country, from the White House, from Congress. We're witnessing it. The world is witnessing it in real time. And so the salvation for this country has always been us. We've always, African people living in America, have always been fighting for freedom. We've always been the most articulate voices for justice and righteousness and truth. That's been our purview. So you can't listen to Dr. Martin Luther King and not feel that. You can't listen to Malcolm X. You can't listen to Adam Clayton Powell. You can't listen to the best that our community has produced and not realize the essence of who we are. So it's time to amplify our greatness, right? And to the extent to which we do that, we change the world. And that's what time it is right now.
Okay. So it's one thing that I been throughout the United States. It's one thing that I see is we are taught to understand everybody else's culture. But when it comes to our culture, nobody want to take the time out to hear us. We're different. And they don't want to hear that. And what I'm finding from talking to people around the country, that the reason why they don't want to hear it is because they scared. They scared what's going to come out. They scared we're going to do to them what they did to us. And that's what's going on right now in this country. They got that empowerment. We could do what we want to do right now. There's no more check and balances out there whatsoever. So the question I'm going to lead up to, how can history become a tool for empowerment in our everyday lives?
So history is all we got, brother. History is all we got. No people who have ever lived has accomplished anything without acknowledging the reality that they stand on the shoulders of their ancestors. America is about to celebrate its 250th anniversary. So they're going to be extolling the virtues of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, and all of these, how can I say it? All of these, the fondling fathers of America, who are all enslavers, right? Who are all hypocrites. So America was America, and see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If history is all that matters, and you want to keep a people enslaved, then it means that you have to falsify the history, erase the real history, and present a false narrative, and then enslave everybody with that false narrative. Not just people of African ancestry, but people of European ancestry. White folk are in worse shape than we are because they believe the lies. And now they're beginning to find out that, the current occupant in the house that enslaved Africans built has been lying to them all. And we all know, if we can be honest for a minute, brother, we all know that white people, and I'm speaking of folk in Texas, white folk got guns. And when white folk with guns get angry, they get crazy. And so when they wake up and realize that they've been had, they've been hoodwinked, they've been bamboozled, they're in another war, you're paying $5, $6, $7 a gallon for gasoline, the prices of everything is going up. When they realize what we have always known, right? Because we've been living with this lie all of our lives for multiple 13, 14 generations. We've been living with this lie, so we know how to deal with it. When they begin to realize that they've been lied to, they are going to fight amongst themselves. And many politicians have been talking about the possibility of a second civil war. So the stage is set for that. And so what we've got to begin to realize by knowing our history is that we need to let these folk fight it out amongst themselves because it's their fight. And we need to be preparing ourselves to ensure that we can thrive after this fight is over, because the entire landscape of this country is going to change economically, socially, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That landscape is going to change. And so we've got to begin to think about the world that we want to bring into existence. Everything that happens in the world, brother, comes from the thought of people. So if you control your thoughts, if you're clear about what your people have done in the past, and you're clear about what you have the capacity to do, then you're clear about what it is that you are going to do. So when you do those things that you know you have the skill, you have the right, you have the strength and the power to do, you do them, we do them better than anybody else. That's always been our hallmark. So I'm saying, if you look at the books behind Brother Aundar, all of those books contain a chapter that can help us restore our memory, our historical and cultural memory, and establish a brick that can be used to build a path to freedom. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is to begin to cultivate a love affair with reading and learning, and act on what we've read, act on what we know, and to demonstrate to young people that this is how you do it. This is how you man up. This is how you woman up. And once they see that this is a better reality than the reality that's been programmed in their minds by the pornography that some people call music, then they'll realize that they have a choice, right? That they got skin in the game. And when they know that they have skin in the game, as creative as our young people are, they will take what we give them to the next level, right? And they would transform the world. And that's where, brother, believe me, that's where all of this is headed. History says, Dr. Clark, to quote Dr. Clark again, and his film that you all will get a chance to see on May the 1st, Dr. John Henry Clark, A Great and Mighty Walk. It opens with Dr. Clark's statement that history is the clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. History is the compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. So once we make learning African history cool again, right? People will know what time it is. People will know where they were going, and they will know the best way to get there. So we've got, as Dr. King said, we got some wonderful days ahead. We got some great days ahead of us. And if we play our cards right, most of us will be able to see those bright days when they manifest within our lifetime, when we have the opportunity to reap the fruits of our labor, right? That's where all of this is headed. And those who know history know that that's what's at stake.
Okay. Ooh.
So, brother, I like talking about this stuff. And once
Hey,
you get
man, I love it. That's because when I was growing up in the Chicago area, a little town called Zion, Illinois, we had Black history, and we were taught all this. And then smart me jumped up and questioned the teacher. And I don't regret what I said. I said, sir, why do we have to have Black history? If history is taught the way it's supposed to be taught, we don't need to have it separate. He looked at me and said, Brother Gordon, you don't know nothing about Black folks. I said, oh, yes, I do. That's why I'm young. I'm asking this question. How come history can be taught as a whole instead of breaking it down? Spanish history, Black history, white history. Why we got to do that? And once I said that question again, he just looked at me and said, we'll talk about that later on. Until this day, we have never talked about it.
So look, man, I didn't know. I'm from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
On the west side of Chicago. So look, let's be clear about one thing. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who 100 years ago on February the 3rd initiated Negro History Week, 100 years ago. 50 years ago, a group of scholars, John Henry Clark was one of them, expanded Negro History Week to Black History Month, right? And so if it wasn't for Dr. Woodson creating Negro History Week and Dr. Clark and others expanding it to Black History Month, if it wasn't for Black History Month, there would be no Spanish Heritage Month. There would be no Women's History Month. There would be no Other People's Month. We started it, right? And so we have to think about this. So what prompted Dr. Woodson to start Negro History Week? Dr. Woodson's premise was because of the fact that African people had been written out of the respectable commentary of human history. He said that we needed to assume responsibility for teaching our children our history every single day. And then we set aside 1 week so that they can demonstrate to the community what they've been learning all year long. That was the original intent for Negro History Week. What prompted Dr. Woodson to initiate that was Dr. Woodson was the second African-American to receive a PhD from Harvard University. He graduated from Harvard in I think it was 1912 and 1913, right? So Dr. Woodson had a degree from Harvard University in history, so he understood history, right? But Dr. Woodson, writing an article in Marcus Garvey's publication, The Negro World, admitted to his readers that it took him 20 years to get Harvard out of his brain. So in other words, what this brother realized is that he had been miseducated, right? And so he set aside a special week for us to study and showcase our history. He created an organization for him to do the research to document that history and to share it with his community. And in 1933, he wrote his magnum opus, The Miseducation of the Negro, in which he documented the extent to which African people in America had intentionally been miseducated. So the reality is, if African people living in America have been miseducated, then Americans have been miseducated, because there is no American history without African American history. So what you were talking about as a young child in a classroom in Zion, Illinois, you were feeling the vibe of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, right? And articulating that issue as a child would articulate it, and your instructor was not able to answer it because he was not on the same vibe that you were on, right? But the reality is there's only one history, as John Jackson said. And John Jackson was the teacher who taught John Henry Clark. As John Jackson said, there's only one history. And that's African history. Because Africans are the first people on the planet, and because everybody on this planet is descended from an African man and African woman. So there's only one people. There's no such thing as race, right? So that's the beauty of studying history, man. You drill down, you peel off the layers of the lies, and you expose the naked truth. And that naked truth is us in all of our glory. And what we have to learn to do is to stand tall in our glory, you know, to make our history our armor and to wear it with pride. And the prouder we are about wearing and showcasing our history, we free everyone else to be proud, to be descendant of African people, wherever that history may have taken them, to France, to Germany, to Nova Scotia, to Hungary, you know, to Russia. These are all descendants of African people. And when we tell the story correctly, chronologically, and tell it in such a way, then that history doesn't disparage anybody.
Yeah.
It just shows you how human beings have interacted with each other, both positively and negatively, and it gives us examples, living examples of what we can do right now if we want to do better.
I like that. I wish I had this talking when I was in high school back in the days. You know, it's a crying shame you learn about stuff as you get older, and once you dig into it, you find out, man, all this stuff has been a complete lie. They take away our history and reframing it the way they want it.
So imagine, going back to your original statement, Brother Gordon, imagine if we had a room full of teenagers right now and had this important conversation with them, and then gave them the tools to begin and reference the books that they need to read now in order to continue this conversation, in order to personalize this conversation. So that's the opportunity that is available to us right now. All right, right now.
Yeah.
So my thing has always been, don't focus on what we're not doing or what we should have been doing. Focus on what needs to be done and then do it. That's it. That's the only thing that matters.
Like what's coming up in May, the Pan-African Festival. That's unique right there. That's building your unity in the Black world community, and Brother Aundar inspired me for all the things that he's doing with that, because you know where I'm from, we had that going on all the time. My mom always sent us out to make sure we knew what our roots were and what everything was all about. When I first moved here to San Antonio, I didn't see that much. I didn't see it. But when I hooked up with Brother Aundar right here, you know, I told him one time, I said, man, this remind me of home.
Okay.
It really does remind me of home, on how we were taught things and all this stuff and everything. And, you know, that's what we're missing. And with this Pan-African Festival going on, that sort of bridged the gap. And I believe more parents ought to bring their kids to events like this to understand exactly what's going on.
And to that point, I would like to say, let me do this. I will declare, right? I'm speaking it into existence, that when people come to the 11th annual Pan-African Cultural Festival, the adults will learn how they can do exactly what you talked about. They will learn what books they should be reading, what conversations they should be having amongst themselves, what conversations they should be having with their children. And this is information that can be passed down and utilized in your churches, in your Masonic lodges, in your fraternities, in your sororities, in your barbershops, in your beauty shops, in your homes, wherever we gather. These are sacred places where we can begin to have intelligent conversations, critical conversations about who we are and how we do us better. Again, it comes at a time when our enemies are banning books, right? It comes at a time when they are anti-DEI. So let them do what they have always done. That is nothing new. And let us not be fearful of what they are doing or what they have done. Let us be clear about how we have always addressed this issue. We've always come together. We've always taught our own. We've always lifted ourselves up. And so now's the time when we have to do this better than ever before. And we have more information available to us now to do that. We've got the media, we've got social media, we've got all these means available to it, and we got young folk who know how to use social media. We just need to give them something positive to socialize about. So we've got everything that we need, and it's simply a matter of demonstrating to people how you do it and why you do it. You do it for your grandchildren. You do it for your great-great-grandchildren. You do it for those who have not been born. And when you instill that type of love and that type of responsibility in Black folk, we will man up, we will woman up, and we will do life better than we ever have done it before. That's who we are, right? And it's that indomitable spirit that people have been trying to suppress, but they can't do it. I mean, just think about this, man. No people on the planet have endured what African people have endured. The slavery, the lynchings, the segregation, the discrimination. No people on the planet have endured this for over 250 years. And we are still here. We're not here despite what the white man has done to us. We are here because of what's inside of us. We're here because of what's in our DNA. We're here because of our relationship with our ancestors. And now circumstances are reminding us that it's time for us to do us better than we ever have done before. And when that happens, it's a whole new ball game, brother.
Yes.
And that's what we're on the threshold of witnessing right now in real time. And people are ready. I'm telling you, man, people are ready.
Final question. What are practical ways people can become more engaged in learning their history and supporting the community?
Support Aundar's business, buy a book, read a book, create sessions where you come together to discuss what's in those books. All the books that I've written are designed to address that issue. Most of the scholars that I read have also contributed to our mental upliftment. As Baba Asa Hilliard, I spoke of Asa Hilliard earlier, son of Texas. Asa Hilliard said the mental slavery is worse than physical slavery because the mental slave believes that he or she is not free, never realizing that the shackles are on our mind. So the last vestiges of freedom is about us freeing our minds. And the means by which we can free ourselves is written in books. That's why white folk are banning books now, because they know the power of knowledge. So we've got all of the tools we need. It's simply a matter now of having constructive conversations. And, through my books, my latest books, A Browder Perspective, I lay out specific things that people can do. In my last major book, Survival Strategies for Africans in America, 13 Steps to Freedom, I lay out 13 specific things people can do over a prescribed period of time that will lead to freedom, freeing your dome, freeing your mind. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The answers are already here. We just need to cut off our television and open a book, study, and then have important conversations with the Black lives that matter to us about how to amplify this knowledge. And once we make that our priority, then everything shifts accordingly. Everything.
I like that.
No doubt. Well, Brother Ron, can I do this before? Because that's our cultural historian, a
Yes.
master teacher. And I think when we share this, I think people are going to be impacted by what Brother Browder has shared with us. But I just wanted to run through kind of the weekend so people can anticipate and, of course, organize their schedule to be with us. So again, this is the 11th annual Pan-African Cultural Festival, family. This is a joint venture, not only with the Pan-African cultural community, but with SABIF, with Sister Ada, with the San Antonio Black International Film Festival, Melanized Media, My Bookstore and more, San Antonio Black History Tours. And that's what I do appreciate, because it's us coming together as a community, understanding the time in which we're living and trying to do these things on a daily basis. So with the 11th annual Pan-African Festival and the community coming together, what we're looking at on the May the 1st, family, and we need all of us, go to Eventbrite, go ahead and get your tickets now. We're going to have Taste of Africa, but we're going to have, of course, Treases with Sister Elise. She's going to make this beautiful African meal for us. We want you to come out and taste Africa. We're inviting the community to wear your best African attire. I mean, we want you looking amazing so we can look like ourselves. And then we're going to have the film, Dr. John Henry Clark, A Great and Mighty Walk. And then we're going to have our great brother, Brother Anthony T. Browder, reflect with us and talk about his experience in his book and all the things that he can connect for us that evening. So family, that's May the 1st, Friday, May the 1st. The door's going to open at 6. We're going to kick off at 6:30. And family, we're going to start at 6:30. All right, so be there. And then, family, we're going to come into Saturday, which is our Pan-African Festival day, really. We're going to kick off the morning from 10 to 12. We're going to have our Pan-African conversation. We have Sister St. Herbert, Dr. St. Herbert from what? She's from Haiti. We got a brother coming from Jamaica. We got a sister, actually a brother coming out of Africa. They're going to be there to have these conversations about what do we do moving forward as a people. The topic of our conversation is the African World Community 2050, using Sankofa to move into the future. And family, we need to come together as a community to have this conversation. And then we're going to go right into the festival itself. There was time when they said that was the door of no return. What we say is the door of return. We must return to our history, our culture. We must return to our African traditional ways. So the festival kicks off at Second Baptist Community Center, and it's going to be a great family event from 12 to 4. We have over 40 vendors. You can taste African dishes from across the continent. You come in there, you have cultural entertainment. We have everything from drumming to dancing and everything else in between, family. And then we want to create a space where we can shop and support each other. Family, we must not just be talking about these things. We must engage in them. So when we talk about buying Black, supporting Black, this is the opportunity and space. And just come out and see what we're creating and making in our community. So come out and support the vendors, please. And then, of course, we're going to have Brother Anthony T. Browder there, and you can buy his book, and he'll have a book signing, family. So please come out. That's Saturday, May the 2nd at Second Baptist Community Center from 12 to 4. And then that evening, we're going back to the Beasley Brown Center for the presentation. The door is going to open at 6:45. We're going to start at 7:30, and we're going to open up, family, with the libations. We're going to acknowledge all those amazing people who are there. And then we're going to go right into the full presentation. And this is going to be a time where you can really take in all that Brother Browder has to share with us. And then we're going to, of course, invite you to ask questions, engage, because we must have a conversation as a community, a meaningful conversation. And this is the evening where we can do that kind of talking and have those kind of ideas being discussed, family. And then finally, that Sunday, we're going to have here at My Bookstore and More, the film. Actually, Brother Browder, this film has Dr. Runoko Rashidi in it. And what we are doing with the film we produced here in San Antonio was the African influence in San Antonio. So in that film, we go back to the Moors in Spain. We go back and talk about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and they came before Columbus, and we go down to the Olmec civilization. We bring all that and bring it into understanding how that is here in San Antonio. The essence and presence of that is here. So We're going to have the film showing that Sunday from 3 to 5, family. Come out, enjoy the film. Let's have a discussion on our history. So in that whole weekend, what we're saying is that we want to promote the African world community, celebrating our history, our culture, celebrating ourselves by getting to know ourselves, investing time with each other so we can build a greater future here in San Antonio and throughout the world.
Thank you for tuning in to WSAN Radio. Catch us on our YouTube channel, WSAN Radio SA. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button.